Written over 2,000 years ago, Titus Lucretius' Carus epic poem expresses completely modern notions. For example, empiricism, a theory of atoms, a theory of evolution, the notion of prehistory, and Epicureanism's morality and psychology. Helping to ignite the Renaissance, it is considered most important. On this video, you may learn details about a section of this epic poem. Lucretius on Nature, Book 6. Atoms Caused the Pandemic. This book begins praising Athens. The poet praises the city as the birthplace of not only cultured civilization, but also of a particular wise man. It is not specified who. I reckon it must be Socrates. Whoever it may be, this man, seeing that humans had acquired all that was materially needed for a happy life, decided to impart unto humanity what was psychologically lacking. Consider these lines.
That they yet within the home, still had the anxious heart which vexed life, unpausingly with torments of the mind, and raved perforce with angry plaints, then by his truth-speaking words, purged the breasts of men, and set the bounds of lust and terror, and exhibited the supreme good whither we all endeavor.
This good, in part, involves surpassing fear of divinity. Yes, speaking of man's religious self-delusions, Lucretius says,
because their ignorance of cosmic causes forces them to yield all thing unto the empery of gods, and to concede the kingly rule to them.
As such, directing himself to his most immediate audience, the name Memmius, the poet beseeches the reader to abandon belief in divinity. Jocularly, to end this introduction, the poet does make positive reference to a religious myth. He beckons the muse of epic poetry, Calliope, to help her in demystifying the most common things that motivate belief. As such, the first topic concerns meteorological phenomena. He quickly makes clear that it cannot be a coincidence that thunder only takes place when clouds are present. Thus, it is clouds, not a deity, that causes thunder. As for what are clouds, he supposes these to be filled with humidity, such as to be heavier and denser than normal air, but not so dense to fall as would wood and stone. Either way, in a prolonged passage, the philosopher argues that clouds cause thunder. This occurs, he says, when they crash or when air somehow splits them. Why does the result of the crash or fissure in the cloud behave as it does?
As iron, white from the hot furnaces, sizzles, when speedily we've plunged its glow down the cold water.
I should note that they are hot because clouds are supposed to not only contain particles of water, but also of fire. Yes, as fire naturally rises, Lucretius supposes that some of it is intercepted and trapped by the clouds on the fire's way to the sun. Likewise, they receive sunlight, which is made of the same particles as fire. Of course, none of this is truly correct or the current understanding, but it is commendable that it is rational and material. It is also jocular as the discussion brings to mind Aristophanes' play titled Clouds. There is a point as to why thunder is seen well before it is heard. As he has already explained, the particles that carry sight move faster and farther than those that carry sound. This can be noticed, apparently, if woodcutting is seen and heard from far away. The poet also indicates that there is a certain regularity to thunder and rainfall. These synchronize with the temperature and the season. Thus, it is unwarranted to assume that some deity is their cause. He insists on the importance of these kind of analyses as he says,
Oh, this it is to mark by what blind force it mocketh each effect, and not, oh not, to unwind Etrurian scrolls oracular, inquiring tokens of occult will of gods.
He also questions why a god would strike meaningless objects and innocent creatures, or why he would do it en masse without any seeming purpose, rather than on discrete and individual occasions, LOL. Not to mention that sometimes the thunder falls on a religious offering. Lucretius also describes how clouds form. This was surprisingly correct. He understands evaporation and condensation. These would be natural to the theory of atoms. As for rain, he attributes either pressure of the air or oversaturation with particles of water. The topic now changes to earthquakes. Lucretius argues that beneath the earth are plenty of caverns and crevices. These often have either water or air. For some reason, the movements of this air or water may cause disturbances on the surface. The poet makes an analogy to how the mere movement of a heavy object shakes the ground around it. Thus, a minor disturbance beneath the soil produces a large quake on the surface. The philosopher then aims to explain a variety of as if curious or miscellaneous phenomenon. The first of these is why the ocean remains leveled despite the constant flux of water into it. The answer is easy: the prevalent evaporation. This is caused by the sunlight and by the mere wind. Then comes the question of volcanoes. First, the point is made that the world is very large and that the number of atoms in existence is infinite. With this in mind, the analogy is made to how sickness develops in the body. A mere toeache may develop into a body-wide infirmity. Yes, a single foreign atom may disturb the body's natural atoms. As such, the explanation to volcanoes, according to Lucretius, is that air beneath the soil revolves at such speed that it grows hot and erupts as fire. Of course, that is not a correct understanding of volcanoes, but it is nearly a correct understanding of contagious diseases. More about it will follow. I rather liked the observation.
There be, besides, something, of which it is not enough one only cause to state, but rather several whereof one will be the true.
This is said to introduce the famed question of why the Nile River ebbs and flows as it does. I know that this was quite the question to Herodotus, LOL. Lucretius also speaks of the claim, the apparent reality, that birds avoid or fall from certain areas of air. The same is said, apparently, of large mammals somewhere in Asia. As for the birds, the poet takes it as fact that this occurs in the Athenian Acropolis. He says that this is not due to some power of the divinity that does not like crows, LOL. Rather, he invokes the notion that all have different receptors for the different atoms of sensation. Once again, as things taste or feel differently to different creatures, so too do they look and smell. Thus,
those birdless places must upsend an essence bearing death to winged things, which from the earth rises into the breezes, to poison part of ski space.
Skipping a pair of things, we arrive at the question of magnets. Here the explanation is rather clever. Magnets, the poet argues, must somehow propel atoms and push objects that lack sufficient void between their atoms. Likewise, in their propelling, they leave vacuum at the other side of the magnet. This vacuum sucks up objects that are not porous enough, objects that lack void, empty spaces. Through the prior explanation, there was a mention of how blood veins must be the carriers and disseminators of nutrients to the body. I did not know that ancient man had such clarity. This is meant as an example of how atoms may move through objects, in this case liquid. Either way, magnets only affect certain metals as all things are, in their atomic level, different. This difference may be seen in how some objects are hardened by heat, while others melt, while yet others burn. Like differences occur with cold. It is quite outstanding of an explanation. Of course, it is incorrect, but most clever. Now the topic turns to disease. Unfortunately, not much that has not been said before is now said. Instead, Lucretius enters into a literal reference describing the horrors of plague. In particular, the one which famously struck Athens during the Pan-Hellenic War. Remember how this is described by Thucydides. Truly, a most significant environmental cause of history if there ever was one. Alas, history driven by mere chance. What is new in terms of scientific explanation is the idea that different areas of the world, different climates, contain different atoms in the air that may cause different diseases. Consider.
Sayest thou not also that whoso arrive in region far from fatherland and home are by the strangeness of the clime and waters distempered, since conditions vary much?
There are various examples. I deduce that malaria is one of them. Of the plague that struck during the Pan-Hellenic War, he describes horrors, rather poetically. Consider the lines.
The insatiable thirst that whelmed their parched bodies, lo, would make a goodly shower seem like the scanty drops.
I will skip over further details. I will merely note that it seems that the text is cut short. The whole work ends, but this does not seem like a natural ending. Surely there was more to this book, and perhaps there was even a whole other book. Alas, alas. We must be grateful to the heroes that managed to preserve what we now have. I hope you did not miss the summaries of the prior books. Either way, I will soon publish the complete series, which includes the introductory analysis. Now, as always, consider this aphorism I crafted as I read the work.
Every year, all the dead who once died fulfill one more year of having died.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.